Sometimes when you look beyond the headline story, you'll discover more questions than answers. I definitely have questions on what I'm going to be talking about. Let's get into it.
The first full week of the new year saw another body found in a Houston bayou.
The murky and slow-moving current of Houston's bayous are secrets buried deep under.
I heard someone screaming, "Help me!"
on Green's Bayou.
In today's video, I am going to go over the top 3 questions that I found online that people are searching for surrounding the investigation with the bodies being discovered in the Houston Buffalo Bayou and surrounding bayous. I'm also going to try to search for facts surrounding these cases because it seems like most of us that are aware of what's going on, we have a lot of questions, and hopefully I answer some of them for you. Here we go. So the top question being asked is there a serial killer stalking Houston bayous? A lot of people want to know what is happening with Houston waterways. January 6th, the first body of 2026 once again was pulled out of one of Houston's bayous. It marked a grim continuation of a trend that saw 70 bodies recovered in like the last 24 months. This has gone beyond 2024. Last year, I believe on TikTok, it started taking off with like the conspiracy theories of a serial killer in Houston, Texas. While city officials and the HPD maintain there is no evidence of a serial killer, undetermined causes of death and the sheer frequency of these discoveries have local residents on edge. Today, I'm going to go beyond the TikTok theories, and we're going to look at data. We're going to look at locations of these recoveries and the 3 big questions the city still hasn't fully answered. Is this a public safety crisis? A failure of the city's infrastructure, or something much darker? Well, I'm going to look at the facts. Is there a serial killer? And of course, as of late, city officials and the police department all have said that they do not believe it is a serial killer.
It's not a serial killer that is routinely dumping bodies in the bayou, no.
Well, there you have it. That's the official word from Harris County District Attorney Sean Tier. There is no serial killer running around and dumping bodies in Houston.
Looking at some of the data behind all of this, it still leaves me with questions, and quite honestly, I feel gaslit. And I'll tell you why. On to the second question. Why are so many of these cases listed undetermined cause of death? And that's by the medical examiner. And another common question that people search for are, who were they? Who were the victims or the bodies that were discovered in the bayou?
Someone screaming, "Help me!"
On Green's Bayou, 58-year-old Rebecca Sue Heinrich was found in the water, dismembered. The same month on Brays Bayou.
I was like, I think that's a body.
On Buffalo Bayou, and then Sims Bayou. In July, 4 bayous with 4 bodies that got us thinking.
How many are in there?
Yeah, the Harris County Medical Examiner's Office confirmed that Salome Garza Jr. was found dead at Buffalo Bayou back in June. Today I spoke with his mother Anissa about the loss, and she says that HPD has given her radio silence.
He was very loving, very caring, giving, had some mental disability. He was full-blown schizophrenic and bipolar, but he did try to manage that every day.
Houston police confirmed that 34-year-old Salome Garza Jr. was recovered by a dive team from the waters at Buffalo Bayou back in June. But for weeks, Villarreal has called the Harris County Medical Examiner's Office hoping to get an update on how Garza died.
He was found in a bayou, but he knows how to swim.
The only belongings of Garza returned to Villarreal was over $100 in cash.
Tonight, a body found near downtown Houston has been identified as 18-year-old reported missing last week. Tierra Horn's death has been ruled a homicide. Her body was discovered along Buffalo Bayou by the park on McKean.
The last moments of 20-year-old University of Houston student Jade McKissick's life. She was found dead yesterday after being reported missing earlier this month.
We're right along North McGregor Way. This is where Houston police say that Jade was last seen. But video shows her walking towards Brays Bayou, which is right over here. And at this hour, police tell us that Her death is under investigation. There's no foul play and no trauma, but it's still a lot of questions.
The common narrative is that these individuals are just houseless people that accidentally drowned or fell into the bayou.
We have a massive homeless problem. We have a massive mental health and addiction problem. All of those things are contributing to a lot of the bodies that we're discovering.
Where are these bodies coming from?
Right.
How do you answer that? Where are these bodies coming from?
They're coming from a number of places. A large portion of them are coming from our unhoused communities in these encampments that are close to the bayou.
UHD criminal justice professor Dr. Krista Gearing is urging people not to jump to conclusions.
I don't think it's a serial killer because a lot of times you have accidental deaths that end up in waterways.
There's several factors: that the bodies were found at 4 different bayous, that there are men and women as basic indicators that they are likely not related.
Because a lot of times you think, oh, they're in the bayou, they're dumping the body to get rid of evidence, right? Because that's what we see on those shows, that the water will wash away the evidence, and that's what happens. People could have just had an accident. People could have done this to themselves. People could have been intoxicated.
Retired Houston Police Captain Greg Freeman agrees.
You have to be vigilant, have situational awareness, what's going on, but this is not anything to be concerned about.
These bodies popping up in bayous. A lot of people walk, bike, and trail along those bayous. Now, we're still waiting to hear what caused these newest bodies to be in a bayou, but police have confirmed in the last year the causes of these cases, they can vary from suicide to murder, even construction accidents. Flooding or heavy rain can also make things more difficult to figure out what happened with a particular case. And there's the growing homeless population that may live along the water.
A lot of people have distrust that the police department can handle just evidence and cases when it comes to these bodies that are being recovered. As of 2017, it's about 200 bodies. And out of those 200 bodies, 40%, I repeat, 40% of those bodies found and recovered from the bayou are classified as undetermined, meaning the medical examiner classified them as cause of death to be undetermined, meaning they don't know how they died. Because of the elements, because Houston is such a hot, humid place, and the waterways are hot, and it's thriving with bacteria and all the elements that will just destroy any evidence, if there is any, on these bodies. But that still leaves a 40%, but that still leaves a lot of percentage for this to possibly be a serial killer. Because if you don't or cannot determine how 40% of these bodies ended up in the bayou or how they died, then how can you rule out without a shadow of a doubt that there isn't a serial killer behind this? I don't want to solely say it's, them not doing a good investigation. There's always room for human error. And how many times, even in the 2000s, that people just don't log in reports. They lose evidence. The Houston Police Department has been in the news before with mishandling forensic data and test kits for a certain type of crime where they didn't store it properly. They were backlogged. A lot of victims never got justice because the evidence that they'd submitted at the time of the crime or when they reported it was lost or deteriorated because it wasn't stored properly and backlogged. When you look at news clips and stories and interviews and they're just saying, no, it's not a serial killer, that's just an internet theory. Look, I get the internet can just, some people do things to get views and create content. I mean, what am I doing here, right? But like I said, how can they rule it out when 40% of the deceased are undetermined? And they may never be able to determine cause of death because if they've been in the bayou for past, I think, 2 to 3 days, already a lot of the evidence deteriorates past like 2 to 3 days. So there's that. Something that could hinder an investigation or turn it into a direction that kind of goes in the wrong direction, so to speak. For example, jurisdictional silos. So different police departments, in this case, like HPD, Houston Police Department, and maybe the Harris County Sheriff, they may not always compare notes on every investigation or undetermined death. So that could also prolong the investigation because they have to cross-reference everything. And even though we do live in a digital world, that's still man hours that people have to take the time to really like focus and do the paperwork and do the investigation with a paper trail. Let's just say, again, we are posing the theory or idea or notion that it's a serial killer. You know, killers often target a certain demographic, whether it's houseless people because they're there or just a vulnerable population. Police sometimes prioritize these cases lower or assume that the cause of death was because of their lifestyle. So again, I hope that's not the case with HPD because this is starting to ramp up, like on social media. People are paying attention to it. I mean, heck, even I am. It has happened before in history of like, you know, high profile serial killer cases. And that's how sometimes they just continue over a long period of time because police departments or investigators just don't connect or link it because for the reasons that I'm giving you. Another one could be the Bayou factor. Obviously, I kind of said that. As mentioned before, the water destroys evidence. And without a clear, air quotes, like signature, like a weapon or evidence that they found on one person or body that they find in another, linking them together to kind of give the notion that it's a serial killer. And it's kind of hard for detectives to prove that 2 drownings or at this point 200 are all related, especially like I keep going back, that 40% that's undetermined. And another reason could be, you know, confirmation bias. If an investigator is convinced that the first death is accidental, they are more likely to view the second and the third ones as accidental because that's the lens that they're looking at when they see this case. I'm not bringing this up because I'm all-knowing and I'm better than investigators. I just hope that, you know, this is kind of information that they're taking in when they are looking at this. Because look, if there's 200 bodies and 40% are undetermined, like do the math, that's 80 bodies that are just undetermined. And I do believe that for a criminal or homicide case to be deemed under the umbrella of a serial killer, I mean, what? All it takes is 2 to 3? And there's 80 undetermined bodies that they've discovered in the bayou that just the medical examiner is like undetermined. And to pull the information on every single body, I mean, is it even public? You'd have to really get in there and do a deep dive search and like do this. But and you absolutely can if you have the time. But like I said, the surface level information that's out there, I just still don't understand why they are just completely ruling out a serial killer. And I think a lot of people feel that way. History has shown us that linkage blindness, if you want to call it, where, you know, investigators just don't link 2 or 3 or more crimes together. I mean, that is a real phenomenon. I mean, it has happened from the Golden State Killer to the Green River Killer. There have been many times where law enforcement insisted deaths were not related, only for DNA to prove years later that they actually were. And look, I get it, because if you don't have forensic evidence or DNA to prove this, it makes it like 1,000 times harder to link them. But, I'm not saying that, you know, hey, get the DNA and link it. I'm just saying when you see investigators or law enforcement people, you know, make statements that, no, there's nothing to worry about, there's not a serial killer. Okay, but there's still like 80 bodies that are undetermined cause of death. So how can you just be so sure? Okay, that's the video. So comment down below if you have further insight on what's going on in Houston's bayous. It's very alarming. And also comment down below if there is something you want to see me talk about. For example, It is not lost on me that the world is literally on fire. And some people's lives are turned upside down right now. I am so sorry if you are living in fear. And if you ever wonder what my politics are, because I think, a lot of you watch me and have, feel like, oh, I've been watching you for years on your other channels or your other social media platforms. But, and I've mentioned this before, but, maybe you need a refresher, or maybe you're new and, you want to know. My politics lie with humanity, with compassion and empathy. A lot of you see that as a weakness, or a lot of you might think I'm being dramatic by mentioning this. Look, if that's you and you feel like there's nothing wrong with the world today, especially in the United States, look, I guess first, I'm happy for you that you are just living a fantastical life while most of the world is just scared or confused or just fatigued, because I literally have whiplash every single day that I get on social media, or I just turn on the TV, or I'm on my phone. It's breaking news. It's giving me whiplash. And I have a migraine thinking about it. And literally I do. I need to get off and go take meds. I am so sorry if you are going through just scary times, if you feel like your voice isn't heard, or there's just helplessness because you don't know what to do, because I feel that way. And I feel like it's important to check in with you all if you're watching me. And if you're new here, yeah, this is me, and I get like this sometimes. I'm not really good with explaining, political talking points. That's not what this channel is. But I feel like some of you probably want to gauge the person that you're watching or spending time with online, listening to them. So compassion, empathy, that's me. I'm pro-humanity, and it just sucks right now for a lot of people, and I'm sorry. So please be safe. Please know that I am exhausted and fatigued with you, but we've got to keep going. I have hope things will get better, and be well. And that's the video. I will see you in the next one. Bye.